welcome to Season 2, Episode 8 of the Free Spirit Academy podcast with IRIDOLOGIST and host of the Raw Food Foot Soldier podcast, Chris Hall. Free Spirit Academy is about you being fully you. My name is Randy Moss, and I'm an eating psychology coach and Kundalini yoga teacher, bringing you conversations about freedom. Largely from rigid diets and painful body image, but ultimately it's about the freedom to be yourself. This is about honoring our own bodies and our purest self-expression. Welcome to the podcast. About a few months ago that Chris and I actually had a talk on his podcast, and it had been lingering on the edge of my mind that I wanted to bring him over. So when I saw on his Instagram stories that he was about to do a social media detox, I was intrigued, and I used it as an opportunity to be like, hey, that would be fun to talk about, and I think we might have about a billion other things in common, so you should come on the podcast. So here he is, and I have to say this episode contains one of my favorite things that has ever happened in an interview. It brought me to tears, so I hang out for the entire conversation to catch the ending. And in that episode, you will hear us talk about what it's like to start a podcast, listening to the sound of your own voice week after week, and putting yourself out there to get your dream guests, his personal journey to sobriety, and then a raw foods-based approach to wellness. And I wanted to note on this that you'll hear Chris mention his sobriety journey being boring, and then you'll also hear him say that he just researched and read books and listened to podcasts and figured himself out. And I actually thought that was an amazing testament to the power of books and podcasts and what we can do with the willingness to heal and grow. So we also talk about the benefits of transition rather than extremes when it comes to pursuing wellness, learning to take care of ourselves in a way that's big picture, which isn't always what feels super good or comfy in the moment, and finally, his experience with stepping away from social media. I hope you enjoy this conversation with Chris Hall. So I have to admit that yesterday when I was planning for this, I just for the first time listened to my episode where you interviewed me on your podcast.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, it's been months, obviously. And I had started listening to it, and I had gotten it in my head that I had talked too much, and I had said a bunch of silly things, and I didn't want to relive that, which is kind of actually how I feel when I go back to edit these episodes. But pretty much every time I'm totally happy with them. And I don't know what your experience is, but what I want to talk to you about up front is growth and journeys as we're creating things, because I've listened to your early podcast episodes, and I've listened to I've listened to your recent podcast episodes, and it's like night and day. And I mean, did you feel much nervousness in the early days when you were first learning it and putting stuff out there, and what kept you going?
Oh, yeah. First of all, thanks for having me on your show. I appreciate it. In the beginning, doing the podcast, it actually took me a while before I actually put anything out there in public. So I was just nervous. I didn't want to, be subjugated to people's comments and stuff like that, the negative comments. But yeah, at first it just kind of put myself out there to share my experience and what I was going through. I thought people would connect and resonate with my journey and my message. And just over time, I've built more confidence. I felt better with my own voice. And, I listen to a lot of podcasts myself. So just seeing what other people are doing, I just gained a little more experience and knowledge of how to do it and perfect it. So, yeah.
Did you or do you have a hard time going back and listening to your own episodes as you're editing and piecing things together?
I don't. That's amazing. I actually enjoy listening to it and kind of learning from it and seeing where I made mistakes, or I like to listen to see where I say the word too many times. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, I got to cut that out. So I got to focus on that. And, I don't know. I might be a little narcissistic. I probably listen to them too much. I think I'm trying to build self-confidence to listen to it over and over. I'm like, is this good? Are people enjoying this? Is this dumb? And so I kind of got to replay it and it's okay. It sounds all right. So yeah, I do kind of listen to them quite a bit, and just a lot of the information from the guests too. I like to
For
listen
sure.
to them.
I really love that. And I feel like I'm getting better at that, at being able to have a sort of neutral mind going into something and being able to like certain elements and not like certain elements and grow
Mhm.
from the ones that I feel like could be improved on. So I really appreciate hearing that. And this sort of, I mean, I can relate to that too, just sort of going back and analyzing your own self. And I do this because I also do theater. And so as I'm learning a part, I'll like video record myself and watch myself and the way that I move. And I'm like, does anybody else do this? And this is kind of
Yeah,
embarrassing, but it's useful to be able to see yourself and then figure out how you can keep growing.
yeah, totally. Yeah, but those first few episodes, they're crunchy to listen to, but I was just finding my voice. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to say and how I was going to say it, and just trying to be authentic. Like the early ones are very authentic, very real, because it's just me, just kind of speaking my truth. And then, later on, I kind of, steal from this podcast or this person and trying to emulate their image a little bit too. But I try and keep it authentic, keep it real.
And when did you start to invite guests on? And what made that shift? Like, did you know you wanted to do that from the beginning?
Yeah, I think I did. But just with my personality, I'm pretty shy, pretty quiet, introverted kind of person. So communicating with people has always been a struggle with me. So there's a lot of fear behind that, right? To connect and talk with somebody and interview them. So I put that off for a long time, but then finally decided that's where I wanted to go with the podcast. And I don't know, maybe a few months in, I started getting guests on, and I just got more comfortable, more relaxed doing that. And now I just love it. I love connecting with people. I get high after the conversation afterwards.
Totally.
It's been an awesome experience.
Was there anybody who, right from the beginning, you were like, if I could get this person on, that would be my dream guest?
Yeah, I had my bucket list, and
Mm.
I think I've pretty much crossed that off. So if I ended the podcast tomorrow, I think I'd be fine. But
Yeah.
no, there's always new people I want to talk to and interview. But yeah, I think I've pretty much nailed the top ones. Just the mentors and influencers that started me on my journey, like Dr. Morse, Dan McDonald, the Life Regenerator. Those are the two that really got me started. So I've had them on the show. So I kind of reached that pinnacle, the apex, I think.
Yeah, yeah, no, I actually totally relate to that. And I'm curious too, I want to talk about your health journey, but before that, I want to go back even further. And when I was listening back to when you interviewed me, the one thing that we strongly bonded over was being insecure, awkward teenagers. And oh, hey, pup. Um,
Yep. Yeah, water guys here. Yep.
oh, perfect. We were warned ahead of time.
Yeah.
Um, being insecure, awkward teenagers, do you feel like it's been a really big journey to get to a place? Like, was that part of the reason you wanted to start interviewing people to sort of, I don't know, improve was it a communication skill thing or ability to connect, or what was that? And what was that journey like?
Well, I think that quiet. I think that well, that's part of the learning process, right? That's where the
Yeah.
growth happens is when you kind of step out of your comfort zone and do things that are bringing you a sense of fear or a sense of doubt because you have that fear and right that's where the growth happens. That's where you kind of learn about yourself is to take on those challenges, to explore new areas that up to that point are just kind of a mystery. So
Mm.
yeah, I just kind of took it on myself to kind of open those doors and be brave and take a step in that direction and learn from it and see what I discover about myself. So I think that's important for people to do. Otherwise, you just become kind of stagnant and stuck in your ways, which might not be healthy.
Oh, for sure. And I'm remembering now another thing from the episode that you said in regards to this was something that you do is you will notice where your fears are and then you will follow them.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love that. What have you learned about yourself in the process?
Oh boy. Well, a lot of things. I know that I have a very addictive personality behavior. That's something that I've been struggling with. Like next month, I'll be 2 years sober.
Wow.
So that's been a huge accomplishment and a learning curve for me. And that's something that I struggled with for geez, like 30 years. 30
Mm.
years it took me to finally acknowledge what was going on. I mean, I think I knew what was happening, but you know, so many different issues behind that. But that took me a long time to get over that, and just learning how my mental behavior is and how I perceive things has been a learning process. But it's been a struggle, and I think that's part of the journey, and that's what I've always been open about. You know, on my podcast too, is just, you know, I'm not perfect. You know, I'm still learning. I still struggle. This isn't easy, and it's a process, and just try and do the best you can.
And I love how you emphasize transition. Like a lot of the people in the health space and healing space, and especially in the raw food world, can be very dogmatic about things, which, and, you know, working in my space in disordered eating and hard relationships with our bodies, that doesn't really serve anybody, I don't think. And you've emphasized transition from the beginning. And I just like all of this. Like, as I was looking over the pieces of how your podcast has grown and how you've shared your journey so honestly and openly and authentically, I've loved your lack of perfectionism.
Yeah.
That's also a very easy thing if you're gonna go and put your face on the internet and your voice on the internet to be like, hey, this
Yeah.
is my story and I'm doing great. But yours has just, it's been really real. And
Yeah.
I think that's very refreshing. Was there ever any temptation to, I don't know, put on a more shiny face about it?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, you want to, you know, put your best foot forward. You know, put a positive image out there on social media, and I think a lot of people do that, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that because we want to attract a certain type of, you know, community around us. So I don't see there's anything wrong with that. And but that's where the pitfall is. That's where I made kind of a huge mistake on my health journey and my path, is because I got sucked into these social media lifestyles that people were portraying, and I'm like, oh, that looks awesome. That's what I want to be doing. I want to be a fruitarian who lives in the jungle and, you know, meditates every morning and is totally blissed out. And, you know, trying to impose that lifestyle into the context of my environment, my reality, was completely unrealistic. And I was failing. And so I'd beat myself up like, why can't I do what they're doing? Why can't I be successful and do what they're doing? Why is this such a struggle for me? And
Mm.
so that really tripped me up. And that's something that I'm trying to dig myself out of now, is to get reconnected to what I want to do, what resonates with me, not what somebody else is doing, because they're on their own path. They're doing their own thing. And that's great. That's awesome. But to think that that's personally for me, that's going to trip me up, and that's going to cause some problems. And that's what I'm trying to figure out now, is what do I want to do? What resonates with me? Not
Mhm.
exactly what somebody else is doing. And that's been a struggle for me. It looks great what they're doing, but that might not be what I need. You know what I mean?
Right. Or even what ultimately feels good to you.
Right. Right.
So I'd love to hear about your health journey and then even a bit about your journey with sobriety. So was that very, I mean, 30 years, was that very on again, off again, or was it just towards the end that you finally decided enough is enough? And then what were the health symptoms that led you to get into, I mean, raw foods, and having a podcast about raw foods and detox and healing, it's very specific. So why
Yeah.
that? How did
Yeah.
you get into that? There's 10 questions for you all at once.
I know. Geez.
I know. The thing that I learn every time that I go back and listen to my podcasts, I'm at least trying to organize my many questions a little bit better so they make sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Here's 20 questions and go.
Yep.
Well, the drinking thing, I guess I started that in my teenage years, drinking, smoking. And I think I knew intuitively, spiritually, that I was doing something wrong. So I knew from the get go, this isn't healthy. I shouldn't be doing it. And so it's always been a struggle for me. I mean, obviously there were some good times with it too, but always with the mentality like, I shouldn't be doing this. I shouldn't be doing this. And so it's always been a struggle. It always ate at me mentally, consumed a lot of mental energy. And so I just fought with that for a long time. And Why I stopped? No, there wasn't a light bulb moment. I didn't hit rock bottom or anything, but I must have just spiritually, mentally got to a point where it was just enough. I just decided it was enough. So I wish I had some great story or something. I don't, but I think just over the years, just accumulating information, listening to podcasts, reading books, I got enough tips and tools of how to navigate and stop. So that's how that happened. But
I mean, that is a great story.
right. Well, I think it all comes back to, and I hate saying the word self-love because I'm not exactly sure what that means. But I think that has a lot to do with it, of self-love. But the problem is when you make unhealthy decisions or choices, that is still an act of self-love because it's unhealthy, but you're making that unhealthy choice because the alternative is a healthy choice, which is going to be stressful for you because you're sacrificing, you're being restrictive or what have you. And that leads to stress, right? Being healthy to a certain extent. So it's easier to do the unhealthy choice because it's going to give you that quick fix, that quick, immediate sense of you don't have to deal with that anxiety, that stress. So it might be an unhealthy choice, but it's still self-love in a certain sense. You know what I mean?
It is. It's just limited. It's still meeting a need. And I think that's where people get caught. Like when I work with people with binge eating, they think that binge eating is the enemy. And we have to look at it like, hey, no, this is how you've known how to take care of yourself for a really long time. And now we're going to learn a more holistic way that doesn't also hurt. But we can't look at it as the enemy.
Yeah. That's what I'm really learning and focusing on now is, embracing those unhealthy choices and see them for what they are. They're just the quick fix to a means as opposed to the long-term sustainable version. So that's, like you said, that's where people get tripped up. And so you have to start leaning more towards the other direction. That's going to be more long-term health benefits for you. But that's the tricky part. And that's where you have to sit in that moment, in that space before you make that unhealthy choice, is to just sit in that moment and just observe those thoughts and emotions and realize why that's popping up and understand that and just sit in that space for a moment and don't be so reactive. Don't be so quick to be impulsive and make that unhealthy choice because those are just thoughts and emotions. They'll fade, they'll disappear, they'll go away. But that's the magic moment. That's where you got to make that choice. And it's hard. It's a struggle. And I think that's where most people trip up. I do too. It's hard.
Yeah, no, I think it is very, very hard. And it sounds so simple when you say it, just sit with your feelings, sit with your thoughts before you do the thing. But it is one of the hardest things. And I think that too, like self-love is also honoring how hard it is and honoring how challenging what comes up in those moments is, because there's a reason we've been avoiding it, right? Like there's a reason we've been eating or drinking or doing whatever the thing is, because whatever's going to come up is probably really painful at first.
Yeah. I don't think anybody wakes up in the morning going, oh, I'm going to self-sabotage or I'm going to do some unhealthy choices. No, we don't think that way. I think all the actions that we do throughout the day and in our life are to reach happiness. I think we always want to be in a state of happiness. So whatever we're doing, we're always trying to stay in that state. And, sometimes that means making unhealthy choices because that brings us that sense of happiness for a short period of time.
Absolutely. And I think that that's natural. And I don't know anybody who hasn't gone through that. When I compare it to intuitive eating, I always say there's like several phases as you're learning to have a healthy relationship with food and a relationship with food that really supports you. There's like the childlike phase, which is rigid and dogmatic. And it's because a child's mind is black or white, all or nothing. You did it, or you're good or bad. And so that's like the heavy dieting portion of this system, whatever you want to call it. And then you've got the teenage phase, which is what you're describing. Like, I really want to feel good and I can do it now. Like I can just get whatever I want, whenever I want, and I can feel good right now. But then it's not big picture. It's not holistic. So then the adult phase of it is, like you're saying, being able to, first of all, realize this feels good for a moment, but it doesn't feel good holistically. And then being able to sit and feel all the discomfort that we've been taking care of ourselves and trying to cover it up. And then being able to make a choice that's bigger than that and supports us more holistically. So I'm totally on board with what you're saying.
Right.
Do you, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, can we swear on this podcast?
Yep, go for it.
So I'll be the first to admit I'm a fucking head case, okay? And my wife will back up that claim. And she thinks, and I partly agree with her, that I'm kind of going through a midlife crisis at the moment
Mm.
because I'm in my 40s, and I guess that's where people say you have one. So to get back to your other question, is how I got into raw foods and all that stuff. I think just getting older,
Mm.
I think my sense of uh, immortality is fading. So I think when we're young, we think we're invincible and we can get away with anything. And to a certain extent, we can. So I'm getting older in life. And so I think I'm starting to see the aging process really speed up. And so I guess in a sense, I'm just trying to find ways to make healthier choices and how to, detoxify the body and do this and that. So I think that's where raw foods and detoxification health came into the picture. Not so much as a midlife crisis, but just trying to make healthier decisions because, I think for a long time I wasn't spiritually awakened, just because, the indoctrination, propaganda, sedative foods, whatever you want to call it. But I think a lot of people live in that world, and that's fine. But I kind of had a moment of clarity, and I got awoke to a more spiritual way of living. And so now I'm just trying to adjust and balance my life according to that. And some people might see that as extreme or a midlife crisis, which is completely understandable. So I've just been going down that road and trying to um, live a life that's more compassionate, healthier choices, and not get into the eating disorders because I see a lot of people in the detox communities or raw food communities create eating disorders, like you said before. So I have to be very conscious of that and just try and balance all that stuff out because you can swing way too far to one side and find that like, oh my God, how did I get here? I got to take a few steps back and rethink this. And I've always said if your path, your journey to get healthy or detoxify yourself is causing you stress,
Mm-hmm.
you're doing something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing something completely wrong. It should be a fun journey. It should be, I mean, depending on where your health level is and what you're trying to do. But yeah, if your health journey is causing you stress, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And I fought against that for so long because we're so indoctrinated with the idea that you have to sort of work and suffer. I mean,
Yeah.
all the way to the like, you got to work your way to heaven sort of idea that a lot of us were raised with, and you have to be so good and so pure and all of these things, and we weren't taught to follow joy or to follow fun. I think that's the word you used, and it really should be fun and exciting. Like Mike Perrine and he just was on the podcast last week, and we were talking about this. Like it should feel, whatever step you're taking should feel like there's a sense of excitement. Like, wait, I can eat this. Ooh, this feels really good. That's odd. The great. Like that's the step you take.
Yeah, totally.
So you mentioned a moment of clarity. Was there a specific thing that happened on an emotional or physical or spiritual level, or was it a conglomeration of things that led you to start looking into the health stuff?
I think it was just a conglomeration of things. Just I hate saying going down the rabbit hole, but just
No, totally.
just getting on. Yeah, I'm a YouTube doctor. I like to call myself. I got my Facebook diploma or what have you. So I just kind of went down the rabbit hole of health and all that stuff that was on social media or what have you. And yeah, I don't know. Something just resonated with me, and just I think people started, because we were always told that milk is good for you and do this and do that, and come to find out you're kind of lied to, and these corporations have these interests to make money and not our health. So just an awakening to that, I think, really got me out of the so-called matrix, and I just kind of viewed things and perceived things from a different point of view, and just kind of opened my eyes to what's really going on or what I think is going on. And it was just kind of an awakening for me. I just started questioning, and seeing that a lot of the stuff that we deal with on a day-to-day basis just isn't healthy for us and doesn't serve us. So just an awakening in that sense.
Yeah, for sure. And I think our journeys are perfect, totally perfect. And I, like, as I look back on my own, I wouldn't ultimately change anything at this point. But just for the sake of conversation, if you could go back to that version of you who was going down the rabbit hole and maybe doing some really extreme things and pushing yourself and all of this, is there anything that you wish you could have told yourself?
Um, yeah, maybe just kind of slow down a little bit, just kind of relax. Don't be so restrictive and militant and preachy about it.
Were you
That's my,
preachy?
oh, yeah, yeah.
Like to your family or your friends, or what was that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm still considered the crazy one in the group. So, yeah, yeah, I got pretty preachy about it. It's just because I was passionate about it and I found my so called truth.
Hmm.
And so I wanted to share that with people. I'm like, I know how to reverse cancer. I know what disease is. I know how to fix it. I know what you're doing wrong. And at the same time, I'm still eating garbage and stuff. So I was a total hypocrite. But no, yeah, I think everybody gets a little preachy just because they're passionate about it and, they think they have all the answers. But
Well, and I think that's part of that teenage phase too, that like, oh my gosh, I found all the answers. I know everything and I'm right and everybody else is
uh,
wrong. And there's also like, it's a genuine sweet excitement and you want to share that, but you don't have like the journey and the wisdom behind you to be able to share in a way that's actually like grounded and well informed and useful. But yeah, I think we all go through that.
Yeah, yeah. I was going to tell you before we started, we should put a disclaimer at the
Oh,
beginning of this episode that I'm not going to drop any nuggets of wisdom. I don't, I don't have any great anecdotal stories, so don't expect that. I want you
no,
guys to
I
be
think you've
disciplined.
actually already dropped several because I'm always keeping my ears open because I like to pull quotes from this to share and advertise and see if people, give them a little something to see if they're interested. And I've had several moments where I'm like, "Ooh, that's good. And that's a gem and that was great." So, no, you totally are.
Yeah, that's kind of you to say because I listen to a lot of podcasts and I hear people come on. I'm like, how do they do it, man? They just bust out these experiences and these great stories and nuggets of information. I'm like, man, I can't do that. I don't know how they just do that on the fly. It's
I
awesome.
think that, for some people, if that's their profession and they
Right,
wrote a
right,
book
right.
or whatever, they probably got their nuggets and their stories lined up and they know, like, this is what you're
Yeah, that's true. That's
like.
true.
I'm just speculating. I don't know. But
Yeah.
that's probably, it's probably a well planned out thing. So, what are some of, like, actually, how long have you been into this, the raw foods healing thing?
Let's see. Oof, it's going on 6 years, I think. So
Okay.
a little after my 40th birthday, yeah, I was kind of dealing with some health issues. Nothing major, just some digestive stuff, and wasn't feeling great. And I went to the allopathic doctors, and they ran a bunch of tests and couldn't find anything. Said I'm fine, but I still wasn't feeling well. So from there on, I just took it upon myself to do my own research and like I said, got on YouTube and started looking stuff up, and from there, kind of opened the floodgates to raw foods and detoxification, and just started learning from there and educating myself, and found out started feeling better.
And how'd your family take all of this? I know you mentioned your wife sort of, acknowledging that maybe you're the nutcase or you're the one going through the midlife crisis. Like, how is this
Yeah,
for your
yeah.
family?
Well, to be honest, it's been a struggle, and it's been tough for me and my wife, just on so many different levels. Because I used to be the party guy, I'd be
Mm.
drinking, smoking, good time, Chris, and that stopped. And
Hmm.
so I made a complete 180 change, and I decided, oh, I'm not eating meat anymore. I'm going vegan, and I'm going on a juice fast for a week. All these crazy things. And so I think that's hard in a relationship to, because if my wife did that to me, I don't know how I deal with that either. Like if she started doing something strange and out of character for her, I'd be like, you're not the same person anymore. So that's been a struggle for us to kind of get through that. And I kind of took on this lifestyle without really consulting her, which was a mistake. There needs to be great communication on both sides to say, hey, I'm interested in exploring this and doing that. I just kind of did it. And I'm like, hey, deal with it. So
Mm.
that was the wrong approach to do. And so we've been kind of struggling through that. And it's been a process. Like I said, she thinks I'm going through a midlife crisis, which is kind of funny. We joke about it. She's not
Yeah.
that serious about it, but Yeah, it's just been hard. It's been hard when I think, not saying my wife's not spiritual, but it's hard when one person in a relationship has a spiritual awakening and the other one doesn't.
Hmm.
So you're kind of going on two different paths, two different beliefs. So that can be a struggle in and of itself. So we've been kind of dealing with that and just raising kids and doing this and doing that. So it hasn't been easy,
Hmm.
but we're working through it. It's getting better. She's coming on board with the vegan thing pretty much now.
Really?
So yeah, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, she noticed when she eats meat, like she has this thing with her foot that flares up.
Hmm.
She gets off the meat, it goes away. So she's starting to see it now. She's like, oh yeah, it's give me some negative health effects. So she's slowly coming on board.
Yeah, I really think the best thing you can do in a partnership is if you're making choices that are hopefully to improve your health, is just to live it. And then as you're going along, if your partner is having issues, they're going to see, like, oh, hey, what I'm, and this isn't just to be like, hey, I'm right and you're wrong, but if something you're doing is working, just to do it rather than being the preachy version of the whole thing, like we always are in the beginning, is long term, I think, the most useful thing. Do you feel like there are ways in which it's brought you closer together, or you've seen like, wow, we can have these differing belief systems and we can still walk side by side and figure this thing out?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. It definitely brings you closer because it forces you to have those conversations, right? It forces you to communicate more, as opposed to maybe you weren't before. So it brings up dialogue, it brings up conversations, and you have to talk about things. And so yeah, definitely it brings you closer and it makes you explore things. And you got to be more of a team. You got to support each other. You got to have a good support system. Otherwise, I don't think it's going to work if someone's trying to do this lifestyle alone against their significant other's wishes or consent. So yeah, I think there's definitely got to support each other for sure. What about you and your wife? Are you the crazy one
Oh,
in
for
the
sure.
relationship? Okay.
100%. I've always been the crazy one. I just feel like the luckiest person in the world because I've been the one that's just, off on all these different journeys and being, I'm into all this stuff. I Kundalini yoga and meditation and juice fasting and raw foods and all this stuff. And my wife has just been there the whole time. And even in the first year of us dating, I would have a breakdown every few months. This is like big picture why I'm the crazy one, and not just food. I would have a breakdown like every 3 months and be like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I'm ready to commit to this. I was only 22 and I didn't feel like I was ready for honestly such a good thing. I was like, I'm supposed to get married in my 30s and I had this whole plan and I was very angry and upset about this, which is
Yeah, yeah,
such
yeah.
a silly thing to be upset about. But she was always just the steady one, and she let me kind of be crazy and let the emotions run through me, and then I would process them and the next day I'd be fine, and at the same time I'd be like, wow, I have somebody who can support me through this. I don't want to mess up a good thing. And that's kind of continually how it's been. She saw me through bulimia and binge eating and really long juice fasts and the works. And
Yeah.
she's still her, but like she's slowly tiptoeing into yoga and she'll drink juice with me in the morning. And but ultimately, even if she never had, that's not what I love about her. It's not
Right.
why I married her. And I do think it makes us stronger, to be so very different, because we are so very different. So yeah, I think there's a lot of beauty in that if you can work through it.
Yeah. Now, did she do the whole social media thing like you do, or is she kind of off
No,
social?
she's a science biology teacher at a college here. So like we are so different. So different.
So she's not like posting on Instagram making smoothies or juices.
No. Oh goodness, no. I don't even let her in the kitchen.
Oh, right.
That's
Yeah,
not true.
get out, get out.
That's like the joke. No, she does fine. She's gotten into like making a homemade pizza crust and stuff lately, so she really can cook. But I like to, and she likes it when I do. So no, we are about as different as you could imagine. Two people being different in every way. So
Yeah.
it's interesting. I think that provides a lot of opportunity for growth.
Oh yeah, 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 for sure. See, that's another thing that I think you want to talk about too, is a social media thing, and that's something that I struggle with. And sometimes I just question, like, what am I doing? Why am I on social media? What's this all about? So,
Like
I,
professionally or just socially?
um, well, that's the tricky thing. See, I'm
Yeah.
I got a podcast, I'm trying to create this community on social media. And so in a sense, I want to be on social media, but on the other side, I'm like, why do I feel like I have to post a photo of me making a juice or green juice or something? Like, yeah, it could get really unhealthy. And I noticed that. So that's something that I've been struggling with.
Yeah, I mean, this was the moment when you said you were going to do the social media detox that I was like, ooh, that's going to be interesting. And I should have you on the podcast finally. And we'll talk about that. So, how was that for you?
Well, I only did a week, which
That's a
to most,
lot.
to
I
most
think
people,
that's a
yeah,
lot.
that can be a lot for some people. And some people are like, yeah, that's not a big deal. But for me, for somebody who checks their phone literally every few minutes, that was huge.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm one of those people. I leave the house, I check my pocket, my phone's not there. I have a minute of panic attack. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my god, where's my phone? So I have a pretty unhealthy relationship with my phone and social media. But again, I'm trying to create a community, so I'm doing my platform on social media. So that's kind of a conundrum there, an oxymoron. But yeah, I decided to just I gotta step away for a minute and just see what that's like and see how that feels. And it felt good. A week definitely wasn't long enough. I was starting to get back into things without social media. So I think a month would be good. But yeah, I just did a week just to put it aside and just like, okay, I'm not going to revolve around that because I can spend all day just going down rabbit holes on Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube or what have you. That's fine. I mean, there's great benefits of social media, but if it's too consuming, you start neglecting other areas of your life, which I was doing. That's not a healthy relationship. So I just needed to step away, take a break, and I'm kind of doing another one right now. So I think that's healthy. I think it's healthy to find that balance
I
with
think
social media.
that's what it is there are so many ways that social media is so like I learned so much and I've connected like I've made real genuine friends that I've ended up meeting in real life and then people that I interview on the podcast and I think
Oh
like
yeah, yeah,
the internet blows my mind, social media blows my mind and like how do we use it healthily so that we're healthy and we're putting out good things in the world and we're learning things all at once.
yeah, yeah.
So do you feel like it made an impact on the way that you use social media, use your phone that week away from it?
Oh yeah, 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 for sure. I quickly can fall right back into it if I'm not careful. I don't know. It's strange the relationship you can have with it because just yesterday I was trying to remember back. I'm like, what was I doing before I had a smartphone?
Hmm.
Because I just had before I had a smart. I was kind of late in the game to get a smartphone. My wife had one before I did. I kind of resisted for some reason. I just had like the old flip phone, and
Oh, me too. God, forever.
yeah, I don't know. I think it had like internet, but you didn't have. You couldn't do what you can now. But
Right.
I was trying to remember, like, what did I do before I had this little pocket computer? And I think life was a lot happier. It was a little bit more blissful. Again, I love social media and all the interactions and stuff, but I think I was out in the nature more. I was doing more things with friends and family, and so I could just kind of see where the negative aspect of it comes into play. So just got to be careful. Yeah, you got to put it in balance.
Well, and I think I wonder too, like the way that you're describing, it was more blissful. I think I wonder, I'm just going to speculate, if because when we are less busy and less stimulated, we're more easily able to process the things that we're going through in our life. But the more
Right.
stimulated we are, like we just have this buildup and backup of things and we never process things. We're not fully feeling our emotions. We're constantly busy and distracted. And I don't think we really had anything to compare we couldn't have compared it to having a phone now then that
Right.
got really clunky but yeah now I think we're creating a totally different world.
Yeah, yeah. It's really strange if you think about it. As I like scroll through, like just say Instagram, like I'll like this photo, but I won't like this one.
Mm.
I'll like this photo. I'll leave an emoji comment so they see that, so they'll really know that I like the photo. It's like it's just weird the things that I'll do just to show someone like, oh, I like your photo, but I'm not going to like this one because I don't agree with the image for some reason, which is kind of weird. Like I'll just
I
pick
don't
and choose
know.
images that I like and I don't like, and that seems kind of strange. And
Why does
just
that feel strange? I guess it seems natural to me.
I don't know. I guess like why would picture of an avocado
Huh.
for some reason make me want to push a button and say, hey, I like that.
Yeah.
But a picture of someone, I don't know, doing a handstand or something doesn't seem as pleasing to me. So I'm like, that doesn't excite me. So I'm not going to give that one a like. I don't know, it's just kind of strange in that sense.
It
And
is
that's
strange.
and just the things too that I find myself wanting to post. I'm like, why do I want to post me drinking a pitcher of a green juice? Why would anybody want to see that? And why does it matter how many likes I get from that? And I'll sit there and I'll watch the feed. I'm like, oh, I got a like. I got another like. I got another like. This is a good photo. I should do another one. Just kind of this weird uh, rabbit hole you go down, and just approval, a sense of approval that you need for people to like your photo. And I don't like spending my life going, oh man, I should be documenting this. This should be on Instagram. I should be taking a picture of this, and kind of takes me out of the moment. And then I don't appreciate the moment. I don't know how many times I've been with my wife and kids, getting the pumpkins at a pumpkin patch, and I'm too busy trying to film the pumpkin patch, and it sucks me out of the moment. And I don't enjoy doing that. And my wife does that too. She's like, not every conversation has to be a podcast. like we'll be sitting having a great in-depth conversation. I'm like, oh, we should be recording this. This would be an awesome podcast. She's like, you don't have to record everything. Not everything has to be a podcast or shared on social media. Like, you're totally right. You're totally right.
Yeah, I totally hear that. And I feel like it goes back to what you were talking about earlier about like following joy. And like if it doesn't feel joyful, because I think that for some people it really is, it genuinely is. They love branding and taking pictures of their avocado and creating this, their brand and their business and promoting.
That's great. That's great.
And if they're in the flow and enjoying that and it feels really fun, like genuinely fun, I think it's so beautiful. And I think we have to notice when it feels clunky and we feel like we're doing a thing because we have to do it. Yeah, that's interesting. I want to talk a little bit more about your podcast before we tie things up, because we were talking earlier about, it's so funny. I was thinking about when you started asking me questions about my wife, I was like, oh, he totally, like, you're going into podcast host mode, which is,
I know, right?
I love having the conversation. And I went there with you because I thought it was a fun conversation. I was just laughing to myself. But I was thinking about communication and the communication that you have with your guests on the podcast and how you've gotten to have all of these dream guests on. And I'm wondering, like, what are maybe the top 3 or handful of things that you have learned from a guest?
Like a reoccurring theme?
Not necessarily, just like, ooh, a little gem from that person, or maybe it's a reoccurring theme. I don't know, whatever comes to mind.
Yeah, I think it's just kind of a recurring theme that I see with my guests. Maybe it's just because of a specific type of guest I pick and choose. I don't know, but yeah, just a lot of recurring things. Again, about the word self-love and just embracing your mistakes and your failures and trying to keep everything in balance and not being too restrictive or militant and going down that road of stress when you're trying to get healthy. So that pops up a lot. And I don't know, is that answering your question?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually like that better than a top 3, this underlying thing that jumps out at you. And maybe that will tie in. The last question that I always ask as I tie up the podcast, because this is the Free Spirit Academy podcast. And the way that I define that for myself is just like getting to be yourself. So you're a free spirit when you feel free to just be you. When you think of that term, what comes to mind for you?
See, I knew you were going to ask this, so I came prepared.
Yes!
So I wrote a poem.
No, did you?
I did.
Oh my gosh, I'm so happy.
So I knew you were going to ask this, so I came prepared.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. As I move, as I dance and play, as my thoughts and innocence swoop and sway, I remember a time when things weren't so complicated, indoctrinated, medicated, and altogether fabricated. I remember being free from misery. I remember a time of giggles and laughter, never pondering about the hereafter. The youthful mind transcends ego of any kind. As I move, as I dance and play, as my age and memories dwindle and fade away, I'll remember a time when I didn't fear it. I'll remember a time when I was a free spirit.
Mm.
Boom, mic drop.
Oh, for serious though, everything melted. I couldn't interview you anymore if I tried. That was so perfect. Thank you
Awesome.
so much. That seriously makes my day. That was beautiful.
Sweet. Yeah. Cause I knew you were going to ask that question because I listened to your show. So I'm like, oh, I got to come up with something and I got to have some kind of good answer. So.
Oh, I love it. No. Oh, I'm so happy. Thank you. So we will have links for anybody that wants to go check out your podcast, The Raw Food Foot Soldier. And I didn't get to ask you about iridology, but do you want to do
I know. Yeah.
just like a short summary of this new certification that you've got, this training that you have that you're offering your services?
Yeah. So I took an online course for iridology, which is basically just the reading of the eyes, which shows your genetic weaknesses, where you're coming from genetically. It shows your current state of health. It shows where you might be in the future with your health. So it's just a great tool to put in your toolkit to kind of assess your health. It's not an end all be all kind of thing. It's still kind of considered woo woo, but once you get into it and you understand how it works, it's really amazing, and I enjoy doing it. So yeah, I recently got certified through Integrated Iridology School. So I'm taking on clients who want to get an iris analysis, and I do an herbal enzyme recommendation with that as well, just to get you started on your detoxification process. So yeah, I've been doing that. It's great fun. I love doing it.
Awesome. Yeah, I've been following along. It's never really made a ping on my radar until you started talking about it. So I am very curious about it. And that was really interesting to hear. Thank you so much. This is good timing to tie things up. It was awesome. I really appreciate you, Chris.
Oh, thanks for having me on. I love connecting, and I love all the things that you're doing and the information you're putting out there. So it was truly an honor to be on your show. I hope I did okay. I listened back to these and I'm like, oh, that was so cringy.
No, I hear you totally. No, it was really great.
All right, awesome, cool, thanks.
I hope you enjoyed this conversation. For more on food and body freedom, get my free ebook, The Eat to Feel Good Diet, by signing up for newsletter updates at freespirit-academy.com. I will be back with you next week.